In the Holy Quran, Allah Almighty has described the story of Hazrat Adam alayhi salam in many different verses and also from different angles. And in these verses, a distinction is established between the being of Iblis and of Shaitan. And Shaitan is a being who is described repeatedly and broadly throughout the Holy Quran. So this concept of Shaitan and Satan is something that is important to understand as to what this terminology means, how it is distinct from Iblis, and what it is that Allah Ta'ala reminds us and advises us about. Now, as for the word of Satan, it refers primarily to two things. One is the desire to do evil, and the second is the spiritual being created to incite evil. So when the word Shaitan is used in the Holy Quran and in the Hadith and elsewhere, one of the meanings is just that general desire, that general inclination towards evil. It does not refer to any being or any conscious being or anything like that. But it doesn't mean that we rule out that possibility either, because the second meaning is to that spiritual being which is created to incite evil. In the same way that Allah Ta'ala has created angels, they are spiritual beings which motivate us towards goodness. So also Allah Ta'ala has created beings that incite towards evil. This is what creates the balance. If there was only one and not the other, then there would be no free will. But there has to be a balance which we stand between, and that is where free will exists. Now, explaining this point, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Rabi Rahimahullah explains that this quality of going wrong or the desire to do wrong, that quality is satanic, and that quality is in every man. Now, there are possibilities. Number one, that this is Satan and that is all, and there is no personification of Satan as such. And then there is another possibility, that just like the system of angels who control goodness, there may be some evil forces created by Allah Almighty of which we don't know directly, but which are responsible for promoting all the forces of evil within man and controlling them. Now, expanding on this, Hazrat Muslim Maud Radiallahu Anhu writes in Tafsir Kabir that every inclination, evil inclination, the source of which is unknown, is referred to as Satan in the Holy Quran. This is because it is the result of subtle thoughts, and the root of the word shaitan indicates to such a being that creates doubts from afar. Sometimes this word is used for that evil spirit that is the initiator of the means of evil in opposition to angels. So here Hazrat Muslim Maud Radiallahu Anhu has emphasized those same two aspects of the meaning of the word shaitan and what this being is. Hazrat Muslim Maud Radiallahu Anhu expands on this further in Tafsir Kabir and writes that Satan, which has been created for the incitement of evil and is an invisible being like the angels, he does not himself come and speak with people. He does not come in bodily form and cause people suffering. People who lost the status of righteousness as a result of their actions become the reflection of Satan. It is their actions that are attributed to Satan. There are other incitements to evil aside from this. They are also referred to as Satan. For example, the Holy Prophet ﷺ said that my Satan has become Muslim. This is in Musnad Ahmad ibn Hanbal, narrated by Hazrat Ibn Abbas. For this reason, Satan only told the Holy Prophet ﷺ to do good. The meaning of this hadith is that the means that become an incitement of evil for ordinary people were a means of the Holy Prophet ﷺ progressing in goodness because of his perfect righteousness. The meaning of this hadith is not that each person has a separate Satan, and that the separate Satan of the Holy Prophet ﷺ had become Muslim. If this were the meaning, then why would the Holy Prophet ﷺ have sought refuge with Allah from Satan? The reality is that the actual Satan was still existent in his original condition. However, the state in those thoughts and emotions that support Satan had become Muslim for the Holy Prophet ﷺ. Now, in this explanation, Hazrat Muslim Maud Radiallahu Anhu describes how the Satan or the word Satan can be used to refer to those to an evil inclination and also to that being. And here it is important to remember that the spiritual creation of Allah Ta'ala is vast. Just as we see in the physical world, there is a vastness of species in the physical world. So also there is a vastness of species in the spiritual world as well. It isn't that just Allah Ta'ala has created the angels and that's it. It's similar to us thinking that we are the only form of life in the universe. Allah Ta'ala is not just Khaliq, He is Khalaq, He is the Supreme Creator. Just as we exist here as a form of life, there can exist many other forms of extraterrestrial life. Allah Ta'ala is not bound and limited to just us. So also it doesn't mean that just those spiritual forms of life that we are aware of, that is all that exists. There can be many spiritual forms of life that exist that Allah Ta'ala has created. One of those spiritual forms of life is angels. Another is Satan. And there can be others that are neutral or on different parts of the spectrum. So the spiritual forms of life that Allah Ta'ala has created are vast. But what is a universal rule with all of this is that none of those things can interfere in our free will. None of those things can come and influence us in a way that deprives us of that choice. This reality, this spiritual reality, this should not lead anyone to superstition. Unfortunately, it has led many people to superstition, thinking that people can become possessed by demons and jinn and that there is a need for exorcism and this sort of thing. But the thing is that just as an angel cannot force anybody to do goodness, so also a jinn or a Satan cannot force someone to evil or to take away their capacity or to make them go crazy or anything like that. These are just spiritual beings that have been created to pull us, to motivate us, to incite us towards one direction or the other, so that the concept of free will exists. And expanding on this point further, Hazrat Muslim Maud Rizwan writes in Tafsir Kabir that the inciter of evil has been created to test man. He could only be punished if he fails to incite evil. Huzur explains here, some people have a question that is Satan going to be sent to hell? Is he going to be punished? Well, some people from other religions, they also ask that if Allah Ta'ala is all-knowing, why was he surprised by Satan rebelling against him? As Huzur explains that Satan is a creation of Allah Almighty for a purpose. To incite towards evil is part of the purpose of Allah Ta'ala. But that doesn't mean that Allah Ta'ala makes us do evil. It means that He gives us the free will. He gives us the choice. There has to be a force that pulls us towards good and towards evil. So Huzur says that the question can arise that why then is Satan called evil? If Allah Ta'ala has created Satan himself for this purpose. Huzur explains that the answer is that being evil is one thing and being deserving of punishment is something else. He said that we do not throw excrements away from our house to punish it, but because for it to remain is harmful for our health. Something that's filthy is filthy, we call it filthy. But that doesn't mean that we punish it. It's just its natural state. So Huzur explains that the same is the case with the inciter of evil, Satan. He is the representative of illness and sin, so he will necessarily be called evil. Despite this, he is not deserving of punishment. Under him there are his manifestations which are from among men and from among jinn. Those evil spirits who have not been created for evil, but they incite evil after having preferred it. Or those humans who have not been created for evil, but they incite evil after having preferred it. These people are Satan, and Iblis and they are Iblis according to their stages, and are deserving of punishment. So here Hazrat Muslim Maud Rizwan who explains that Satan being evil does not mean that Satan is punishable. It is part of the very nature of the creation of Allah Almighty, and it is a necessary part of creation. Free will and the concept of free will and choice cannot exist without these things existing. Then, explaining another aspect of this, Hazrat Muslim Maud Rizwan writes that neither can the angels derive pleasure from heaven, nor can Satan derive pain from hell. Satan is a being of fire. Can a brand of fire find pain in fire? That is its place. The brand of fire belongs in fire. It is in its natural place. Thus, Satan going into hell does not mean that he will be punished. Rather, he will go to the place that he belongs to. If the angels go to paradise, it will not be because of any reward. In the same way, Satan will not go to hell because of any punishment. Zur further explains that some people object as to why Satan will be sent to hell. The answer is that Satan said, "You created me from fire." Thus, for something that was created from fire to go into fire is no punishment. If you place coal into fire, what punishment is that for it? Then Huzur explains that the creation of Satan is subordinate to human beings. Regardless, whatever Satans are not humans will not be deserving of punishment because they are fulfilling their obligation. As the filthy things in this world are not worthy of punishment or being questioned as to why they are filthy, similarly, the Satans who are not human, they are not deserving of punishment. However, those humans that are Satan, they are certainly deserving of punishment. Now in these quotes, Hazrat Muslim Maud Rizwan who explains the aspect of something that is equal between angels and Satans. Just because angels are in paradise, as has been described in the Holy Quran and the Hadith, does not mean that they are being rewarded for anything. That is where their responsibility lies. The angels of Allah Almighty are given many different responsibilities. In fact, in the Holy Quran it also describes angels of Allah Almighty that will be responsible for punishment in hell. It doesn't mean that those angels are being punished in hell just because they are in hell. nor does it mean that angels are being rewarded for any deeds because they are doing a service in paradise. This just symbolizes that within spiritual beings there are different responsibilities. And the same way that angels have responsibilities, Satans have responsibilities as well. And simply because it is described that Satan is in hell does not mean that Satan is now being punished in hell. Then finally describing an aspect of the word jinn, Hazrat Muslim Maud Rizwan, who explains that the word jinn is used in the Holy Quran to refer to many things. First, the word jinn refers to those evil spirits that incite satanic thoughts in the same way that angels create angelic motivations. They are the helpers of that Satan who is the inciter of evil. This is derived from the verse in Surah An-Nas that who whispers into the hearts of men from among jinn and mankind. So this is a summary that our Khulafa have given on this subject. And when we observe the broadness of the word Satan and the way that it has been used, then when we look at the different contexts that exist in the Holy Quran, then we can see what the wisdom of each of those verses are. And there is a further broadness to it as well that we have not discussed in this verse. But when we come to this story of Hazrat Adam alayhi salam, here we can see the distinction between Iblis and Shaitan. Shaitan is described in that story of the Holy Quran is that being who whispered into the ear of Hazrat Adam alayhi salam, who incited him, who tempted him, who gave him advice in the name of goodness, but it was evil advice. This is distinct from the being of Iblis, who rebelled directly against Hazrat Adam alayhi salam. So this is a distinction which that verse of the Holy Quran has drawn. And also when we see this vast tafsir that has been given by our Khulafa, we can see the greatness of the spiritual beings that Allah Ta'ala has created, the vastness of the diversity in their species and in their responsibilities. And this can also give us an insight into the beauty and the complexity of the life of the hereafter and of the spiritual world. Just as our physical world is filled with scientific marvels of greater and greater beauty, when we watch a documentary, it opens our mind more and more as to how beautiful and complex the physical creation of Allah Ta'ala is. So also the spiritual creation of Allah Ta'ala is far more diverse and complex, and it is filled with even greater beauties. So may Allah Almighty grant us the sight of not just the physical beauties of His creation, but the diversity of the spiritual beauties of His creation. So now if there's any questions that anyone has, we can briefly address them.
So I did not hear the entire, but did you go over briefly the difference between Iblis and Shaitan?
Ji, in the beginning we went over that briefly, and we went into a detail of what Shaitan is exactly.
After some time, like Satan is only active until this word is on.
Ji?
Satan is active during in this word, right?
Yes.
So when this word gonna be, Allah may say, there's gonna be Qiyamah. So that's a limit of Shaitan. It's gonna be done till then.
So
It's a life of Shaitan.
Ji. So Shaitan exists only as a means of temptation and a balance of the forces of good and evil for a species that has free will. So our species, which is the human being, we have free will at present right now. But there could be other species that have free will as well. We can't say that with the end we are the first species to have free will, nor can we say that we are the last. So as long as there is free will that exists in the universe anywhere, in the spiritual order, so there's always a need for Shaitan, and there's always a need for angels to incite towards goodness and evil. So when our form of when a form of life that has free will ceases to exist, so the need of Shaitan also ceases to exist.
On a day-to-day basis, do both these forces act on the free will of human beings, Iblis and Shaitan, or is it just one?
Both. So both are pulling us towards opposite directions. And a person's receptiveness towards each of them is something that increases as our life goes on. This is why Hazrat Muslim Maud Rizwan explained in his speech, Malaikatullah, that there's a reason the whole Iman in angels is the second article of faith. And it's not there just to gloss over, to pass over. It is very important for our spiritual progress that we develop a relationship with the angels of Allah, and also identify the tahriqat that they place in our heart, the initiatives where we feel something that comes externally to pull us towards goodness and to respond to it. The more we respond to it, the more our relationship with the angels is strengthened. And the opposite is when an evil inclination is created within our hearts, when we respond to it and affirm it, then that relationship with the Shaitan becomes stronger. So both are there throughout our lives, but our relationship with one or the other grows stronger as we progress through life.
I think the word Iblis is a permanent symbol of bad things and evils, and Shaitan is by actions. The person who commits that evil, that is called Shaitan. As Allah Ta'ala said in Quran that Ma kunna mu'azzabina hatta nab'atha rasula. So likewise, when the person doesn't commit any evil, he is not Shaitan. And he is not doing he is not counted as a follower of Iblis. Similarly, the person who simply says that we don't have a belief in prophets, Hazrat Muslim also said, and Hazrat Muslim Awwal said that they will not be punished. Hatta Nabasa Rasula means that when they will start persecution of the prophets or their followers, then they will be punished.
In this world.
Yes.
But if they don't persecute and they reject a prophet of God, they will be punished in the hereafter, though.
Yeah. So these are the two meanings, equal running. These two forces, two principles running equally in Quran.
So how are we going to rid of Satan by praying?
It's as Hazur explained that when we can recognize an angelic inclination within our heart and a satanic inclination, when we feel that there is a motivation and a desire that comes from our heart externally, from a place that we did not know, we did not recognize. So that is an inclination that comes externally from Satan or from the angels. And when it is something and that's something that a person continues to recognize as they look within their hearts. And the way that a person strengthens their relationship with either one of these two is that when that inclination or that incitation or that motivation comes within their heart, then how do they respond to it? The more we respond to by submitting to it, then our relationship with the source of it becomes stronger. But when we reject it, then a person's relationship with the angels or the Satans that are the source of it becomes weaker and weaker. Okay, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad wa barik wa sallim innaka hamidun majid.